Hi, I'm John Carvello, president of Stone Oak Capital and Divestopedia. This is our masterclass on selling a mid-market business. In this class, we were talking about the due diligence phase. As always, I'm joined by my peers of world-class investment banking experts, Michael Carter, managing partner at Carter, Morse & Goodrich in Southport, Connecticut, Simon Davies, managing director at Spectrum Corporate Finance in the UK, and Bill Snow, managing director with Jordan Knopf and Company in Chicago, Illinois. Bill, we'll start with you in this class. So during due diligence, information is usually released in stages. Can you provide a description of this process, of what information is released and at what stage?
Sure. The information obviously starts with the first phone call, the teaser. As we've discussed in other classes, we get to the confidential information memorandum. A lot of information is provided there. And typically after we get indications of interest, we do management presentations. We will then open up a data room, and depending on the situation, on the deal, this might vary from transaction to transaction, but we'll provide more information. We might provide audits or reviews to the extent that we have account prepared statements. We might provide certain contracts. We might provide customer information. Maybe the customer information is redacted, so it's customer one, customer two, customer three, so forth and so on. Maybe some contracts, maybe some environmental issues. If we have had phase ones, phase twos, we'll start providing that information. And again, it's tailor-made based on the transaction and based on what a potential buyer might need. And the idea there, of course, is to provide the information that the buyer needs to put together a letter of intent.
Michael, do you want to add to this and just, again, that stage release of information, trying to maintain confidentiality and give the buyer enough information, a balance between enough information to provide an offer, but not too much to kind of give away information that might be confidential?
Yeah, as Bill alluded to, it is a balancing act. One of the things that we always look at is there information that if that buyer is not selected to go to the next round could harm you in the marketplace. And if there is, we try to keep that for round two, because obviously most people aren't going to go to round, the second round. And so that would be kind of our, say, criteria. Bill alluded to things like, labeling your top 10 customers A, B, C, D. And so you can do things like that to keep that number confidential. But for the most part, it's trying to give them the good, the bad, and the ugly, and making sure that when we're picking our finalists, we're picking the right, 3 to 5 finalists.
Simon, could you add to that process? Again, just that release stage of information during due diligence and during the whole process in entirety.
Sure. I think for us, due diligence is the buyer's right to fully understand that what they've been told about the business is valid and correct. And you can do that in 2 stages. You can either do it to a bigger number of buyers so they get more information and they can validate that, or you can wait till you're in exclusivity and let the buyer have control of that. So the main point I would make is that depending on the size of the deal, and in the UK it probably is typically 35 million sterling, deals above that level, we tend to do vendor due diligence. We don't give it to all and sundry. We want people to qualify themselves. And the reason how they qualify themselves is they offer a big enough price at the LOI stage, at that first round bid, to be able to have access to that information. And at that point, we may give them vendor financial due diligence, commercial due diligence, and legal due diligence, so they get a lot more information about the business. But we're only giving it to those that see value in the business and have taken that step of putting that forward. And so it may be a short list of 3 or 4 parties, or even 1 or 2 parties, but it's a small number that you take a commercial view on. You still may redact some information. We've had a case recently where the customer list was only disclosed about a week before completion. So that was kept right to the end. but generally you want to make sure that the bidders behave during the due diligence process and don't use it as a reason to chip the price. When you're setting the scope for those due diligence reports, sometimes the buyers will set their team out to find things to be able to reduce the price with, which is why we try and keep control and do the vendor due diligence ahead to be a very simple statement of facts about the business to enable them to put the best offer forward.
Simon, you made a really great point where, a buyer presenting a reasonable and attractive offer is almost table stakes to moving on to the next phase and getting more information in the process. That's a great point.